What's up, everybody? Ronald P. Tucker here, and I recently tabled at a comic book convention for the first time in over 2 years, and I learned a lot. So I thought for today's video, I would go over the top 5 things I learned at tabling at a convention. Hopefully they can help you in the future. Now, while this will be mostly geared toward comic book creators, it is kind of applicable to anybody else who does crafts and things like that. But basically, I'm talking to the comic book creators out there, different ways to get your stuff out there, get noticed, have a good time, and try to make some sales at the comic book conventions. So let's get into it. Now, a lot of these suggestions might seem like no-brainers or things that I probably should have thought about before. And to be honest, yeah, I probably should have. But like I said, I haven't done this in 2 years. So the first thing I noticed was you really want to have a wide range of products at your table. Now, I'm not talking about hundreds of products, but definitely more than a handful. Maybe like 5 to 10 would be good. I'm talking about different things you can have as like prints, mini prints, stickers, and of course your comic books. Why do I say this? Not only does it help to have a wide range of products to try to have a different flavor for somebody who's maybe walking by your table and doesn't like one thing but might like the other, but it also helps with your price range, because if you only have one product that's $10 or $5 and nothing else in different price ranges, that can be a hindrance too. You can have some stickers that are maybe $2 or $3. You can have some pins for $1 that you can get really cheap online. Or you can have some really nice prints for $10, $15, even $20, depending on your art style and how much work you put into them. There's all kinds of things you can do that way. And that's one thing I noticed. I had a couple prints, and I had my comic book and my middle grade novel. But that was pretty much it. So then for the future, I'm definitely going to work on having another book out. I'm going to have a lot more prints. I'm going to try to have I want to have at least 10 to 15 prints to sell. Not only does that make it a wide range, like I said, of different things that might pique someone's interest, but it does give it a little bit more of a colorful background to your table, to your booth, so people can see, oh, there's a print of Superman. Oh, there's a print of Spider-Man. Oh, there's a print of My Hero Academia. All different things like that can catch the person's eye and attention. Number 2, have a good elevator pitch. Not something that goes on and on and on. You know, you've heard that saying, have a good 30-second elevator pitch for someone you might meet. That's what I'm talking about. When I first got there on the first day, this was a 2-day con, and I started talking about my book, The Amazing Red Bee. Oh, it's about a superhero named Amazing Red Bee and his dog Peanut Butter who protect crime. That's okay. It's definitely short, but it didn't really have any, any huzzbah, any action, anything to pique their interest. It's just kind of like a regular, plain old description of a superhero. So what I did after working on it, I stumbled over my words a couple times, and don't worry about that. You're gonna stumble over a couple words. You're gonna stumble over a lot of words, and you might have a couple mess ups here and there, and people are gonna look at you strange. Hey, that comes with the territory. You're figuring it out. I was figuring it out. So what I did was, after the second day, I flipped to a page, had this one open on my table. This is the Amazing Red Bee right here. And then when people come by, the very first page has this image right here. So it has the Amazing Red Bee, who his origin story is he got involved in an accident at the Science Museum during a field trip. Okay, so what was my really quick elevator pitch for them? The book was open on the table. I plop open the first page. I say, oh, the Amazing Red Bee. After an accident during a field trip at the Science Museum, he developed superhuman bee powers. And that always elicited some type of response, either a smirk, either a laugh, a little chuckle, something. And as you can tell, it's definitely a lot, not action-packed, but definitely a lot better than saying, oh, this is the Amazing Red Bee and his dog Peanut Butter who protect Hive City. They're superheroes. That's kind of plain. But when you say, oh, he's involved in a field trip accident at the Science Museum and he gets electrocuted and then he develops superpowers. So you kind of have to be a little bit more animated, put yourself a little bit more out there. That will go into my next point in a couple minutes. But for my third point, have reader copies available. So as you can see on this first picture, on the first day, I didn't have anything available like to put in someone's hand right on the table. Of course, I had my books on the little bookshelf there. But when I moved over to the second day, as you can see in this picture, I had the books spread open on the table, both issues 1 and 2, available for people to thumb through, to flip through, something that will catch their eyes. That goes with your pitch right there, because after you're done with that little quick pitch, then you can say, hey, yeah, so this is what the book is about. Why don't you take a look? Have a gander at this. See if anything catches your eye. And that works especially in my case, because not only am I trying to appeal to adults who might have kids or be guardians in some way, shape, or form, but I'm also doing this for the kids, because they look at the pictures and I say, hey, yeah, check it out. Feel free to flip through. And it's something that they can just get their hands on. I've heard from other speakers and other presenters and other people who do shows at either comic book conventions, craft fairs, farmer markets, and a lot of them are authors of prose novels. And they'll say, get the book in the person's hand. Once they got it in their hand, it almost becomes a tactile thing where they're like, oh, look, let me see this. And there's a lot better chances of them buying your book and actually taking a look at it and thinking that it might be something they'll be interested in, instead of them just, looking at it from afar and saying, oh yeah, that looks nice, and then just keep walking away. Now, I'm not a very big pushy salesman, and so I don't really recommend that stuff. Other people, if you're an extrovert and you're good at that stuff, do it. But like I said, if you just at least have it open on your table, it's there for them to flip through, and then, that has another element of something that they can look at, something that might pique their interest, instead of just seeing the cover on a bookshelf and walking right by them. Okay, tip number 4 of my tips for this video is you want to make sure you don't leave your booth early. Now, as I've said in the past, sometimes the shows can be slow. And this one was one that was actually pretty slow from what people were telling me. I had never been to it before. From other people who were tabling at the convention, they came up and they asked me, oh, how you doing? And I just, gave them the random, oh, yeah, I'm doing all right. And they're like, yeah, it's been kind of slow, huh? And I heard that from multiple people. And then there's actually a booth, someone tabling at a booth next to me that came over and said, oh yeah, there's a lot of vendors walking around. That's how I can tell it's a really slow convention. And so early in the morning on the second day, I took a stroll around the convention and, videoed it. And I'll pop that up on the screen right here. And what I noticed was, it looks really dead right here. Of course, that was when we first opened. But as I was walking around, I saw the vendors who were behind those booths, who were at those tables. And yeah, I had remembered seeing them the day before, who were just walking around. So it was kind of slow. With that being said, I still recommend not leaving early. The sales that I got were all within the last 2 to 3 hours of the show. I think that's because probably people are walking around, they're not sure what they want to spend their money on, and they're just, taking it all in. I know I do that when I go to shows. The other thing is, you never know who's going to stop by your booth. There's a person who was tabling right next to me, and we had the actress Joey Lauren Adams, who was a guest at the show. Well, the person who was tabling next to me went up to her the first day and offered her some free stickers and pins and said, hey, come on, check my stuff out, because she was a really big fan of that actress. Well, the next day, the actress actually stopped by her booth, and this was like 30 minutes before the show was going to close. If it was really slow and she decided she was going to leave early, she might have missed that. So, and the same thing happened with me, just with customers and with readers. They came up, it was like a day. On the last day, it was an hour before we were going to close, and I made another sale with a book. So you never know who's going to show up and what time they're going to show up. So even if it's a slow show, don't leave early. And now my last one. Tip number 5 for tabling at comic conventions. Be approachable. This is the tip I said I was going to talk about earlier. You want to be approachable. I know a lot of us, we're artists, we're writers, we're very introverted, so we want to kind of keep our head down, just put up a little sign that says, don't talk to me. I know some people want to do that, but for the artists out there, we want to just be sketching in our book all day. You know what? You got to try to fight that somehow. Don't let people walk on by with just a smile. That is not being approachable enough. If you smile, they smile back and they keep walking. At least say, hey, how you doing? How's the show going for you? You having fun? Something as simple as that can get them to stop, and it helped me a lot when I did that tabling at this show right now. I stood up. Oh, that's the other thing. Stand up. Don't sit down. Unless you're talking to kids, then maybe you could sit down and meet their eye level. But standing up makes you be a little bit more approachable. And then just, hey, how's it going? How's your show going? And then half the time, more than half the time, they won't just, oh, hi, yeah, thanks, bye. They'll stop for a second. Oh, it's going good. How's your show going? And you can say, oh, yeah, it's going great. Hey, this is my book, The Amazing Red Bee. And then go on with your little pitch there and maybe flip through a page, offer them something else that might be on their table. If nothing else, even if they don't buy, they took that 2 to 3 seconds extra to stop there and maybe catch something that they might see later, that they might think about later, and come back to your table. Okay, so those are my 5 tips for tabling at a comic book convention. Like I said, this is the first comic book convention that I had tabled at in over 2 years, and actually the last one I tabled at was super slow too, but that was just because it was caught in the middle of a snowstorm, which I talked about in a previous video. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, hit that like, hit that subscribe, and I will be back next week with another video. Thanks!